Welcome, Captive Raptors podcast, episode 4, or whatever this is now. Just solely me, myself, and I today. Sadly, no lizards. You might see one wandering behind me, but I doubt it because it's not long before they go to bed. So yeah, just me sat at the desk reading off my horrendous notes. So it is what it is. But today we are talking Timor monitors. Got the microphone here, so hopefully, yeah. Anyway. So today's podcast, we're going to do, like I say, Timor monitors. There's not a lot really out there on Timor monitors. So I am basically just going to be going off my personal experience. I've been keeping these guys for 2 years now. I've managed to get 2 clutches, one from each female. And I currently have 2 eggs, which look good. And they're, 30 odd days now into incubation. So yeah, but this podcast we're going to go just a quick overview of the species, following a similar plan to the Aki one. So a quick overview of the species, sourcing your Timor, the setup, heating and lighting, humidity, diet, supplementation, enrichment, socializing, and breeding and cycling at the very end. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So just an overview quickly of Timors. So Timor monitor, or the blue spot Timor monitor, is Varanus timorensis, very similar to the peacock monitor, which is Varanus affenbergi, and they're also sort of clumped into the same little group as Varanus similis, or I'm not sure the common name of those. The black spot tree monitor, maybe? I don't know. But this is basically going to be on Timorensis, the Timor, because that's all I've kept. But I'm pretty sure Affenbergi will be more or less the same. These guys are around the same size as Aki's, a lot more slender built, very typical monitor-esque look to them rather than the bulldozers that Aki's are. But these guys will get around 20, 24 to some pushing 30 inches because they have got that longer tail. I find them quite slow growers, to be honest. Mine are, one will be 2 in a couple of months, and my youngest one is around 18 months old. And they're currently 20 inches, maybe. My biggest one is around 20 inches. But I've had them from babies, captive bred, and I found that they grow incredibly slow. So if you've got a young Timor monitor and it's not very big, like an Aki can be full size in like a year and a half. Like, that is not the case I've found with Timors. So if you've got a Timor and it's not very big, but it's eating loads, don't worry. I've found that they're slow growers. Like I say, they're definitely a more slender monitor, and they are built for a life in the trees. They've got the sharp claws, they've got the long semi-prehensile tail. They're not designed to be a bulky fat monitor, so let's put it that way. You'll find these guys on the island of Timor, which is a little island off sort of that Indo-Aussie sort of area where all those other little insular island monitors are. And Rotti Island, that's where the Affenbergi is from, but you can get Timorensis on Rotti Island, to my understanding. Timor, the island of Timor, is broken up into 2 parts, but to my knowledge, you can find Timorensis across both. And you can also find them in Papua New Guinea. And I've been told that the Similis is also into Australia, but the Timorensis and the Affenbergi aren't. If that's wrong, don't shoot me. Yeah, that's pretty much just a quick overview of the Timors and the species that we're going to be diving into today. So let's get into it. So first off is obviously you need to find a Timor. From my understanding, in the UK and in America, it's been a lot harder as of recently to find Timorensis or even Affenbergi. Affenbergi tends to be a bit more rare than Timorensis, but they're quite hard to find now. I'd always say go captive bred. There are people captive breeding them. To my knowledge, there's 3 or 4 people in the UK being successful with them. Definitely 2. I myself am hoping to be successful with them. I have eggs at the moment, but my trio, is still quite young. and the eggs are still early days. But there are a few people I know. There's a couple of people in the UK, 1 or 2, that are doing Affenbergi as well. So it's just a case of finding those breeders, getting yourself on the list, and just holding tight. That's pretty much all there is to it. I'm sure it'd be the same in America. I know Great Basin Serpentarium, they breed Timorensis. So again, reach out to them, get on the list. In America, you can just put a monitor in a box and ship it. In the UK, it's not quite that easy. So yeah, you just have to wait. In America, I believe it's probably easier to get a import, but Indonesia have stopped or slowed down importation, so you can't get them as easy anymore. Same with a lot of the Indo stuff. Sadly, they used to be really popular, and no one really ever wanted to work with them or breed them. And one person would have it as a pet, and that would it. The pet would die. Same with the species. Now they're hard to find, so I'm sort of evangelizing Timorensis, and I've decided to sort of make that my mission on keeping them. We'll get more into it into the podcast, but I don't enjoy keeping them. They're shy. They're very, very shy. It's very much empty cage with Timors, but people have to do it, otherwise in 15, 20 years we won't have Timors. If you're looking for a pet Timor, again, go captive bred. If you're going wild caught route, if you are getting a wild caught animal, make sure you try and breed that animal so its sacrifice coming out of the wild isn't for nothing. You can just make sure that you do your utmost to make sure that these guys stay in captivity. So yeah, that's pretty much it on finding. I'm just going to twist this quick and adjust it quick. That's it pretty much on finding a Timor. They're hard to find. You just have to look around, talk to breeders, reach out to people on Instagram that have pictures of them, Facebook. Where did you get them from? Where can I find it? No point in going any more over that. They're rare, and they're rare because no one wants to breed them. So start breeding them. So next, setup. I've personally been through 3 different setups with my guys, as in style, and I'll go through that. So I'll just go over what I personally think is the bare minimum sizes for one fully grown adult, which I currently don't have right now. I've got sub-adults pushing adult sizes in the next 6 to 8 months. But I would recommend that one adult will go in a 4 foot long, 3 foot tall, 2 foot deep, minimum. I think 4x4x2 is much better, but that's going to be a minimum. I think you could get away with a pair in a 4x4x2 as an adult, but I'll probably update this when I have adults. I recommend a 6x3x3 or a 5x5x2 for a pair or a trio. If you're like wanting to do it quote unquote properly, go big, go home with monitors. That's what I recommend. I plan on having my trio as adults in a 6x3x3. I think these guys they're listed as semi-arboreal, but I find that they are mine are 99% above sort of ground level. It's strange because they are sort of fossorial, so they burrow. So my guys are either burrowed or up high. They're hardly ever on the ground. They only go on the ground to use the toilet. I've found I actually see them actively climb down, use the toilet, and then climb back up. I have a pool. It's a rub, but it's big enough for them to completely submerge and sort of swim backwards and forwards because I find that they like to swim. So all I have on the ground is one cork hide, the water bowl, big water bowl, and then sandy soil mixed, and it's about a foot high in some places, and they do actively burrow, and I constantly think they're laying eggs, but they're just burrowing, and I'll find them in there. So definitely want to have deep substrate for Timors, in my opinion. They definitely burrow, and you definitely want to have a big water bowl because they definitely swim. You also want to have height and make use of that available height because for me they don't spend a lot of time on the ground given the option to be up high. So on the ground I have the deep sandy soil, and then I have that covered in leaf litter. One, it's quite cool, looks good. It's also enriching for them to sort of dig through it and find bugs. As well as you can keep that sandy soil nice and humid, nice and moist. I don't want damp, but moist. And then that leaf litter will act as a barrier to stop it quickly evaporating. But you also want that sandy soil heated from below, so that humidity, so that water level in there doesn't dry out and it does start to rise up through and helps aid the humidity in the setup. For these guys, I definitely think you need climbable walls. They are a very erratic, quick, highly strung, shy varanid. So I would definitely have climbable walls because it instantly just makes the usable space of the vivarium so much bigger. And then they can sort of hang as well. So when the females are going through vitellogenesis, they can hang. And it sort of works well because it's a nice vertical hanging spot for them. So yeah, I personally think you should have live plants in there because one, it helps in humidity. Two, helps oxidize, maybe. Basically, just stops the viv being as stagnant. I'm going to focus myself. Oh well. Stops the viv being as stagnant. So you definitely want to have live plants. Now I've got a couple of big pothos that cover the whole cage. If you want to see my Timor cage, go to Instagram at Paul's Monitors. I've got a video of my most recent one, and I will do a video on one when I'm hoping to move in the next couple of months. So when I move, all of my animals are getting upgraded, and the Timors will be going into a 6x3x3. So I'll do a video completely on that, but that'll be later down the line. Small branches, so like thin, twiggy branches. I think they get overlooked a lot. I think there's nothing cooler than watching a monitor navigate across a really small, sparse, spaced out branch, like thin, just where they have to actually use their muscles rather than just be lazy and plod across. You need big branches in cork hides and cork tubes. They love cork tubes. Mine are always in cork tubes. But just the thin branches, I think there's nothing cooler than watching. I do it with my Prasinus, my green trees as well. Like, there's nothing cooler than watching them just sort of splay across, like, twigs. Definitely think you need that. I think it looks great. Adds a nice detail to the enclosure. Plus, it's that different level of muscle mass that they need to sort of carry their body across it. I think that's all I've written down for the setup, more or less. So that's the size and what to fill it with. Yeah, so they're just these guys are, in my opinion, a tree monitor. They aren't a true tree monitor, but they're definitely a tree monitor. So you want to focus on that arboreal side, and you want to focus on usable climbing space and tubes. But also, they've been known to sort of habitate, rock escarpments like in the wild. So if you wanted to do like a slate rocky basking spot, and then like a forest-esque sort of grass area, forest, they'd love that. The setups I had before, I had a lot of foliage and hiding spots on the ground, and they just didn't use it. So that's why I sort of elevated everything. And I only have one on the ground at the moment, just purely to hide sort of where they nest, which I'll go into in the nesting section. So, excuse me, yeah. So that's pretty much that for that. So if we go into heating and lighting, so basking spot for Timors, try and find it. Some people say 35 degrees, some people say 65 degrees. I personally have been keeping mine at 52. That's what it was when I tested it today. 52 degrees. And I've got a big bit of cork, flat cork. And I have the lamp, for example, let's say this lamp. And then I have the cork slated down. I can't figure my angle out. Like that. Yeah, like that. So at the top, it's around 46. Under the lamp, it's 52. And as I come back down, it's around 46. So they've got a gradient, and there's a spread of the lamp. So it gives them an opportunity to sort of pick where they want to be. and overhead of that I have an LED, a floodlight, and over the head of that, as well as with that, I have T5 UVB. We'll stick with temperatures for now. So 52 to 46 on the basking spot is what I use. And then the ambient sort of hot temperature is anywhere between 40 and 35 degrees on the hot side. So hot side, this isn't my Timor cage, but the hot side. And then as we're getting into the colder side, is 28 to 24 degrees. So yeah, so as the temperature rises, so on the hot side it's hot, and on the cold side, on the bottom, it's about 24 degrees, and then up on the hot side, on the cold side, but higher, it's around 40 degrees. But then on the cold side, under the soil, it's heated, so the soil's cold on the top, but when they dig down, it gets warmer. Not like nature, but that's how I go about the nesting. But again, I'll get more into that nesting. The heat is supplied via halogen. I always have halogens for all of my veranids. It gives me that nice UVA. And like I say, T5 UVB, personally I think is a must. You have to have UVB with monitors, personal opinion, but go for UVB. I checked the UVI today with my solar meter, and under the basking spot is a UVI of bang on 4. Some might argue it's a little bit high, but that's what I've got. Excuse me. And then I have, obviously with all UV, it's very, very paramount that you get to a point where there's no UVI, so there's no UV rays, so whether that's in a cork tube or in their burrow, so they can completely escape the UV exposure. So again, on my basking spot, I've got a gradient of 4 to 2.5. So they can sort of pick where they want to be on the UV index, and they can pick where they want to be on temperature wise. And then throughout the cage, it's 3.5 at the top near the UVB. And as we go down to the bottom, we're getting a UVI of 1, 0.5, disappearing off into completely nothing, depending whereabouts in the cage they are. And again, with the LEDs, I can't stress enough, not all of my cages have LEDs yet, but the ones that do, like, it's just seeing the level of activity that goes into the monitor when you're just adding a 10-pound LED floodlight just above the basking spot and just 6,500 Kelvin, just a white crisp light. They just seem to seek it out a lot more. I did a little bit of an experiment tangent, but I put a halogen on one side and I put an LED on the other side, and for some reason the lizards would always bask under the halogen for a couple of minutes and then take themselves off to the LED. It's almost like they needed that visible light. I'm not a scientist, I don't understand that, but I don't have it in all of my cages, so there's no point in going, oh yeah, this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be honest, I don't have it in all of my cages, but when I redo every one of my cages, every single one of my cages will be set up that way. And I will do, well, again, when I move, it's not now, but that's the whole point, we just keep bettering our husbandry. I will do halogen to come on, and then an hour later, I will have the LED in the tank, in the setup in the enclosure, come on. Then I will have the LED on the basking spot come on, and then I will have the UVB come on, and then have it on for as long as I want it to come on, and then I'll have it to go UVB off, LED above the basking spot off, LED in the cage off, and then halogen off, sort of replicate that sunrise, midday sunset. I think personally, if we can do that, that would be amazing, and I'll be updating everything in 6 to 8 months whenever I move, when it may be, and I change it all over to that, and I'll document sort of the difference that I see in my lizards and the activity. So yeah, so well, I'm just reading my notes. I've sort of gone over that. Okay. Humidity, 70 to 80% is normally what my cold side on the sort of top of the substrate sits at. It disappears less so, more so, as I get higher in the enclosure. So on the cold side, higher in the enclosure, it's around 60%. At the bottom of the enclosure, it's around 80%. On the hot side, it's much, much less, because obviously that's where the basking spot is, so it's around 30 odd percent, something like that. But the burrows will be 90 to 100% humidity, so they have that option. They have soil that can hold, like an Aki setup, they have soil that can hold a burrow, so they can burrow down in that. Perfect. I've said about covering the substrate with the leaves. That helps hold in the soil's humidity as such, so that, and again, enables them that nice humid burrow, that microclimate that they can escape into if they feel like they need to when they're shedding, or if they're too hot, they can go down there and cool off as such. As well as the pond helps for the aid of humidity. Plus, they like to swim, but it's also important to have them a space where they can sort of dry out completely. So the basking spot I always try and keep dry. I spray these guys. I'm going to go into cycling, but more or less once every other day. I heavy mist them once every other day, but I'll go more into misting when I get into cycling, because I cycle these guys and sort of aid to hope to breed them. So I'll get into that when we get to the cycling section. So just reading my notes again, and I think that is more or less it for humidity. Again, the humidity can be achieved by having the deep soil, the nice pond to swim in. Make sure the humidity doesn't escape from the heated soil by having a leaf litter cover there, or some bark to cover it, just something to cover that top layer to just stop it dispersing straight away. Live plants help in the aid of humidity, and having a good sealed vivarium will help with humidity. So yeah, food, insectivorous, but not always. So my Timors, again, this is all my stuff. I sort of read a few care sheets, watched a few videos, did a few researches, did this, did that. Not a lot on them, so I've just sort of based it off what I have and what I'm keeping. So they get adult winged locusts, so grasshoppers in America, the biggish ones. Love them. They go crazy for them. Absolutely adore them. So I have them as a staple. I have a bowl of, it's a cup filled with roaches, and they sort of come to that and feed from that. I will also give them prawns. I will give them chopped up quail, chicks, and I will give them pinkies every now and then. I think, being a tree monitor, I think these guys would come. They have an egg, sorry, but I was getting to that point. Being a tree monitor, these guys will come across birds and chicks and eggs, and they will be nest raiders. I also think they probably would eat some lizards. So having an unfurred mouse as such, or very small bone density, will be similar to them picking off a lizard or a reptile up in the trees. So I don't think these guys are 100% insectivorous, but I'm personally mine are 90% insectivorous. I do feed pinkies and more meat to the females when I'm trying to cycle them, when I'm trying to get them to go into a food cycle, and when they've just laid eggs. Same as I do for my Akis. My male, I'll be completely honest, he's getting a bit porky because he sort of bullies my females. So I think this year what I'm going to do is split him through the summer. So in the next month or so, I'm going to pull him out, keep him out of the enclosure for 6 months, and then try and slim him down, because a fat male's a lazy male, and then reintroduce him in September, October time. So maybe not quite 6 months, but and hopefully that'll spur on a good breeding behaviour and activity. But yeah, food needs to be supplemented. I do calcium with these guys and multivitamin. I do calcium with them once a week, and I do multivitamin with them once a week. How often do I feed them? Really, really varies. Again, because I cycle these guys, they're not on food all the time. Sometimes I starve them. But if you've just got one as a pet and you're not trying to breed it, as an adult, I would say probably feed it 2 to 3 times a week, depending what you're feeding and depending on how heavy. Again, like what I said with my Akis, I probably wouldn't worry too much about feeding 5 cockroaches every third day. I would do 5 and then 4 or 5 days no food. Then I would do 10 and then no food. And then I would do 3 days, 5 locusts. Then I'd do no food for 10 days and just sporadic feeding and sporadic numbers. So it's not regimented and it's not routine. It's not something for them to get used to, because once they get used to it and they sort of recognize and see a pattern, they're going to get lazy and they're going to get complacent. And we don't want that. So when I go into the cycling, I'll sort of touch more on how I feed and what my sort of humidity spraying regimens are in the cycling area. But yeah, so I give them calcium without D3 because I have the UVB, and they can too much D3, they're going to not want to bask. So if they're not because their body already has enough D3, so then they don't want to come out and bask because the basking spot's under the UVB. So they're like, oh, I don't need to turn this calcium into D3 because I've already got too much D3. So then they don't want to bask. So I don't use D3, and I make sure I have a solar meter, so I make sure that my UVB is on point, so they can metabolize that themselves. And again, I do a multivitamin once a week, and then I do a feed. No, what I tend to do is I tend to supplement the roaches and the quail and pinkies, but I don't tend to supplement the locusts. I just sort of leave them in there. So that's sort of how I do it. So if I'm feeding roaches or a higher protein source, a mammalian or avian food, or even the prawns, I'll supplement that on whatever said supplement day it is. And then if I'm feeding locusts, or when I'm feeding locusts, the locusts just get put in there. Very, very, very important to gut load your bugs. Make sure that your locusts and your roaches are fed on a high quality diet, not too high in X thing, for example, protein. Make sure they're fed on a good staple. I feed my roaches gerbil food, and I feed my locusts a insect gut load as well as fresh salad, and the roaches get fresh salad as well. And I will make sure that I gut load them 24 to 48 hours before feeding off to said lizards to make sure that their food is top notch, and then what they're eating is good quality. So sorry, talking to myself is quite exhausting. Enrichment, that monitor brain, get that monitor brain ticking. So there's many things you can do for monitor lizards and how you can enrich them, and I do different things for different species. The Timors, I just leave them to it because I hate them. That's a joke. Sarcasm. What I do for the Timors is I tend to change around their hiding spots. So I have some set in place ones, but I have some smaller loose ones that I can move around the enclosure. I tend to do that so they come and they go, huh? What? Hey? And then they can sort of be like, what? And I tend to have 2 or 3 different ones that I switch in and out. So there'll be a new smell or a new placement. Just that little something silly. And I'll also change the spot where I have my cockroach sort of cup, so they don't know it comes to the same spot. So they'll go to the spot and they'll go, huh, where's the food? So they have to use their tongue and it gets their brain going. And they have to find where I put the cockroaches. Because I find that putting cockroaches into a cage like my Timor setup, they're gone. They're disappeared. That's it. They're finished. That's just me wasting money. So I find just moving around a couple of their hides, moving around their cockroach cup, switching position of the branches every now and then, just so that it goes that way, now goes that way. Something silly like that. And also just new leaf litter. Just going to get some new leaf litter, new smells, new textures. As the leaf litter starts to sort of break up and go into your substrate anyway, it's good to keep replenishing it. So that's just a constant. Something silly like that will just keep their brains thinking and ticking over. To be honest, that's more or less all I do. I do try and tongue feed my Timors, which is going to lead me into socialization. My male will tongue feed, but my females, as soon as they see me, they're just gone. They run off. They're petrified. They're scared. My bigger female, she's starting to get a bit more bold. But my little female, little Tina, she doesn't want anything to do with me. So, and I don't blame her. But yeah, just changing the enclosure around. I try not to get my Timors out. We're sort of touching into socialization at the same time now, as well as enrichment, and the lighting is terrible. So I have lost my train of thought. What do I do? I don't know. Where was I? So yeah, males. I find males are a lot more bold. And I'm gonna go into a bit of sexing Timors here as well, actually. So bonus feature. So the males I find, we'll just go straight into that, have clear hemipenal bulges. Obvious, nice big lumps. I told the story on Will Exotic's podcast where Tina, my little female, she has hemiclitoral bulges, but they're quite big. She's gifted in that department, and I honestly thought she was a male because she had nice big hemipenal bulges, and sometimes a smaller male will act less dominant as such from the bigger male, so it will take on the sort of features and attributes of a female, so the big male will leave it alone. And I saw my male breeding it, and I thought I saw the signs of vitellogenesis, and 35 days had passed, something like that, and I was like, oh, no eggs. I'm still trying to figure out how to breed Timors, I don't have a clue, but 35 days had passed, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get any eggs. So I took her out, sort of checked her over, and she had 2 clear lumps there, and I was like, right, okay, she's definitely a boy then. Put her in a separate enclosure. 2 days later, my girlfriend's like, I know that's not, but is that an egg? I said, well, it can't be. He's a boy. And then, sure enough, I looked and it was an egg, and she gave me 8 eggs. But she was tiny. There was no signs that she was going to lay eggs. She wasn't swollen up and bloated like an Aki. Same as when my other girl gave me eggs. She wasn't swollen up. She wasn't big. She just gave me eggs. So yeah. Someone coughed and it put me off. Sorry. So yeah, males, clear hemipenal bulges. Females might have a little one, but the males, side by side, the male is clearly much bigger bulge. Females have longer torsos, so the body area is longer, and males have sort of a rounded snout. Females are more of a point, and males have like a rounded sort of oval shaped head, where a female's more like an arrow shaped head. I've seen this pretty much across the board, definitely in mine, other than Tina, who's got massive lumps for a girl, but compared to the male, they're still tiny. So yeah, male, he's quite bold. He'll stay out. I can open the door. Doesn't run off. He will tongue feed. There's a video on my Instagram of him hand feeding, so he's okay. The females I tend to not see. My big female, I'm lucky to see her fully out once a month, and I'll see her head maybe 3 times a month, sorry, and that is literally it. She's quite active between the hours of like 10 a.m. and 3 p.m, but I work 8 till 5, so I never see my Timors. I need to get some cameras installed so I can sort of see what they're doing with their lives, but money and effort, and I don't have either. So as regards to what I would do for socializing them, if you get a captive bred baby, put it in a setup with elevated hides facing you, and make sure you go in that cage every single day. Not necessarily forcing or touching or making that baby do anything that baby doesn't want to do, but make sure it knows your presence. My Timor setup is my Timor enclosure is set up so that they can hide and not see me, which is a mistake on my part. But I wanted my animals to feel comfortable because I don't want a tame Timor. It's a lot less stressful for them if they are tolerable of you, because you can get them in and out with no stress. So it was bad on my part, but I just sort of wanted them to be happy, breed for me, eat for me, be good for me. That's all I wanted from my Timor. So I gave them a nice dense enclosure from the moment I got them, so they would just feel comfortable. Hindsight, I probably should have done a bit more sparse with some definitely hides. Don't have an empty enclosure, definitely hides. But I think that's where I went wrong. So they're not used to me. They're not used to seeing me. They're not used to me being around. So when they do see me, they get scared. So I think if you get your captive bred baby, make sure you socialize it from the day you get it. hopefully the breeder's been. I know if my eggs hatch, I'll be working with them babies daily, trying to make myself really, really tame, social, not scared Timors. That's my plan. So put it in an appropriate size enclosure for a baby, probably something like an Exoterra, a couple of elevated cork hides, and just try and get that baby to love you with food, like you would with any varanid. If you can get that baby to tongue feed and come onto you, so it knows that you're not a problem, you're gonna have a winner. You're gonna have a nice tame Timor. They are an incredibly flighty, incredibly shy species, and I don't believe in making a monitor do anything it doesn't want to do. So I don't believe in going in there and forcing them out unless I absolutely have to. So I do everything sort of with them in the enclosure and just leave them to it. My male won't come on to me for food, but he will tongue feed. So there is that potential there, but I'll be completely honest, I personally don't work on that relationship purely because I'll be honest, that's not why I have Timors. I don't have Timors to have tame Timors. I have Timors to breed Timors. And that's not any other reason other than I just don't want them to disappear because they're a stunning, stunning species. The blues and the oranges that my little girl Tina has in her throat, they're just like, she has these orangey purple like esque flecks in her on her throat pattern, and she's stunning, and she's got like this cryptic zigzagging pattern down her back, and the other two have got like the indicative blue spots, and they're a stunning lizard when you see them. And so yeah, socializing is going to be quite hard then, definitely not for the faint-hearted. I see a lot of people say they want to get Timors, and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen this, I've seen that. For me, they're a nightmare. I just never see them ever. They're a real passion project, and my passion is dead. Yeah, I'm just joking, but I'll keep it up with these guys, and I'm really hoping that I can crack them. And I'm hoping, because mine are first generation captive bred, they're from wild caught parents to my knowledge. So I'm hoping with F2s, F3s, F4s, F5s, so captive bred generations 2, 3, 4 times over, that they will become nice and tame, like we're seeing with tree monitors. Like Prasinus from the wild, but Prasinus out the egg it's a completely different ball game. So that's what I'm hoping. So the socializing aspect of it, I can't really comment on because I'm not trying to do it, but they will respond to tongue feeding and they will respond to your presence. Just don't make the same mistake I made of putting them in a really, 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 really dense enclosure and not interacting with them until they're older. My mistake, my bad, but we move. So I'm going to have a drink and then we're going to get into breeding Timors, even though I have no idea how to do it, but I've managed to somehow get eggs twice. That's probably going to make me incredibly gassy, and I should probably just have water for podcast, but here we are. So we're going to start in the month of June, which is next month. This month. Hay fever. Oh god, I'm going to die. So from June until September, I'm going to dry them out. And I've slowly been drying them out over the last month. And when I say slowly been drying them out, they always have fresh water up high in a cup, which I change daily. And they have their little pond in the bottom, which I change twice a week. But the spraying. So I'll go from spraying, let's just say every day, to every third day. And then I slowly can decrease the amount that I spray them. Less and less and less and less until we get to June. And then I'll be spraying them twice a week. That's it. And I'll be giving them a heavy mist. Let's just say Tuesday and Friday of a night time. Just to give that humidity at night. But the day, hot and dry. As we get into July, I'll keep this going. And slowly start to decrease the amount of food that they have. And then in August, I'll be doing the same. September, I'll be doing the same. So by September, they're being sprayed once a week, fed once, twice a week, limited amount of food. So their temperatures will remain the same, but the humidity will be less so, replicating the hot season. So the temperature is the same in Indonesia. They just have in their winter, in their wet season, there's cloud cover, so the humidity can't escape. But in their hot season, there's no cloud cover, so the humidity sort of comes out at night. But during the day, it's hot. It's still humid, but it's much less humid. Excuse me. So that's what I'll be doing through June to September. When September comes, I'll be slowly starting to increase how much I spray them. So I'll be going from once a week to twice a week to 3 times a week to 4 times a week throughout September to December. Slowly increasing that amount of sort of how much I'll be spraying them. And as December, maybe November, December starts to hit, I've written my notes wrong. So let's just say that December, I'll be starting to add more water, starting to spray them more. And then March, so December through to March, just heavy misting. So that'll be every day, twice a day, in the morning and then at night. And at night is very important because humidity spikes at night. So heavy mist in the morning, heavy mist at night, and that'll be from November, December, right the way through till March, April. Spray heavy, spray heavy, spray heavy. And then March from June, again, I'll slowly, or April to June, I'll be slowly bringing that back down. So that's the cycle for the water. So just quick, June to September, start to dry them out. September to December, start to add more water. December to March, heavy spraying twice a day. Soak them. Mist the absolute hell out of them. And then April through to June, start to decrease the water. And then food. So that's my wet dry season. So my food cycling. From June to September, I start to decrease the food. So feeding them, for example, let's say I feed them 3 times a week, they'll go down to 2 times a week. So then September to December, they'll be still on there 2 times a week as I'm starting to increase the water. And then from December to March, November to March, when I'm misting the absolute hell out of them, just before I start that, I'm going to feed the absolute hell out of them. So they're going to get a couple of bigger meals, and then the humidity starting to increase. And then they're going to get a couple of bigger meals, humidity starting to increase. Then they're going to have food every day. And they're going to get starting off with a nice high protein. Maybe they'll have a couple of pinkies where they've only been having a couple of locusts. So they're going to be like, oh, there's a lot more food around here. Maybe we could have babies and our babies will survive because there's lots of food for our babies. So I'm spraying them and I'm feeding them. And I'm hoping that they go, right, this is great, we can breed. It's worked for me twice, like I say. Both females have gone last year. Well, one last year, one this year. Not necessarily in that window, but around the sort of end of the year, start of the year, that sort of 4-month, 5-month block, I have had eggs. So whether it works or not, I don't know. I've managed to have eggs. I don't know if there's a better way. This is just what I'm doing. But yeah, increasing the food and increasing humidity at the same time. I'm hoping that means that I get that increased chance of follicles. The season's changing. Plus, we use our weather here in the UK. Through November to March, we get a lot of rain. So a lot of rain. I have windows open, so I get sort of that barometric pressure sort of running through my flat, as well as the sort of humidity in the cages and the temperature drop, and it all just sort of, hopefully, using nature to my side, sort of ties itself in together. I hope I've explained that well enough. But yeah, I go from spraying them every day, twice a day, to spraying them every day, to spraying them 3 times a week, to spraying them twice a week, to spraying them once a week, feeding them every day, to feeding them 4 times a week, to feeding them 3 times a week, feeding them once a week. Less dense, less important, but just, I can't think if I'd just maintenance feeding them, just getting them slim, getting them ready to breed, because fat male, fat female, you want your females to have a bit of timber on them so they can support the eggs, but definitely not the male. My males, I think I'm going to struggle, hence why I want to pull him out, because I think he's a bit too big. Finally, I just want to touch on nesting. So at the moment, I'm going for whole cage nesting, because my big girl laid under a flower pot, And Tina, bless her, sort of scattered her eggs because I put her in an enclosure not designed for a female Timor. We have to own our mistakes. Full cage nesting I'm going for at the moment with a temperature gradient of 27 to 31 degrees, which I think is 82 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So they can dig and sort of find their temperature spot between that. But what I might try when I move them into a bigger enclosure, I might try like flat corks. So a big bit of cork but a flat, and lay it on the ground. Put a bit of sphagnum moss underneath it with deep soil as well. But I have a theory that they could just lay under it, because I've found that they just like to lay under stuff from reading and what I've looked into. Still keep the deep substrate, one, if they want to lay in it, and two, they seem to burrow anyway. I tried a nesting box, a shallow substrate in a nesting box, and she just laid under the plant pot. So I took everything off the floor other than the water bowl and a cork tube, round hide. So I can't sort of fail again if they're. But then they started to just randomly dig, which has made me fail because when they randomly dig, I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting eggs, and then I see all three of them up high, and I'm like, okay, I'm going digging, and I've dug the cage up 30 times in a month and not found eggs. So I'm restraining myself now to when I actually see the female looking slender. Plus, I'm not expecting them to breed coming in now to the summer. So, yeah, they're really putting me through the ringer, to be honest. But yeah, deep heated soil, whole cage nesting, because I've spoke to a couple of breeders and they say that the Timors, when they look to lay, they dig the cage up, but mine seem to just burrow. As in, for example, tree monitors 99% of the time won't dig unless they're looking to lay eggs. Timor monitors, they like to burrow, in my instance. So that doesn't mean they're going to lay. That just means that they're burrowing, and you get a lot of false hope. So when I finally crack these guys, it will be a happy day. But that day has not come just yet. But yeah, I think I will go for a couple of flats on the ground and have nothing else on the ground, water bowl, a couple of cork flats, and then deep soil under the flats, just to sort of experiment with that. But as far as clutch sizes, I got 2 slug clutches. Tina laid recently. On the 5th of April she laid, and she gave me 8 eggs, and she's only a little girl, and 2 of them were fertile, 6 of them were slugs. And my other Timor hasn't got a name yet, but my other Timor, let's just say Tracy. Tracy, she laid 5 eggs. 1 was good but didn't make it, and 4 were slugs. So I'm hoping coming into this breeding season, it's the end of this year, start of next year, I'm hoping that I can get both of them to cycle perfectly for me, and I can get some nice big clutches now that they're a good size and they'll both be over 2 years old. My intention wasn't to breed Timors at this age. I wanted to house them together and grow them up from being young, because I wanted them to sort of be used to each other. I didn't want to have to introduce them and go through the hassle of introducing monitors. I wanted to keep them together as a trio. And yeah, they cycled and laid eggs for me. But I'd been cycling them, food and temperature, and well, the temperature's more or less the same. I get a bit more of a drop in the winter, but food and humidity cycling them from since I've had them. So hopefully now that they've been cycling for nearly 2 years, and well, by this season it'll be 2 years, and they've both had a clutch, I can really crack and hopefully double clutch them both. I haven't seen much on Ackies. They'll lay and lay and lay. I haven't seen much on Timors doing that, but to my knowledge you can get 2 to 3 clutches from them in the year, but they're quite hard to get to cycle, so I'm still trying to dial that one in. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's all my notes. I've been talking for 50 minutes on Timors now. So if you're still here, thank you very much. If I wasn't my normal happy energetic self, that's because I found out that my son's moving 5 hours away from me, and he's 4. And it's made me very sad this weekend. So F's in the chat if you've made it this far. yeah, Timor's summary. I think they're great. They look like little mini colourful Nile monitors, and who doesn't love a Nile monitor? Clearly not me, because I don't evangelise Niles on this channel. But I love them. I'd love one day, but I don't have the space. They look great. They're just incredibly shy. So just make sure that you do research. If you're looking for a lizard that you want to interact with and see, Timors probably aren't for you. But I definitely think more people need to get on board with them, just because we will lose them as a species in the next 10, 15, 20 years if no one does. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, like it, subscribe. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry. It's 50 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Let me know next week what you'd like me to do. Let's pull out, I reckon. Follow me on Instagram. Thank you for all the support. Love you, bye. Hello. If you're looking to how to care for Timor, fuck.